Right, now let's start thinking about dissolving water-soluble fabrics, particularly Solufleece. Before I dissolve this piece, which is a bit bright under all the studio lights, but you can just see this. This is the one I was working on before. I'm just going to take it out of the ring now. Pop that to one side. Always keep your ring together. And if you need to, just tighten the screws so the inner ring doesn't wander off and get separated from the outer ring, because it's very annoying when you go to find one and you can't find the other half. Of course, you'll be neat and tidy, not like me. We have some little bits of silk sandwiched in between the water soluble, and then I machine stitched all the way around the silk leaves, and we've basically now got a piece that I'm going to dissolve to make a bowl. Before I do that, I just want to talk to you about trapping fabric and threads and knitting yarns and sari strips and things like that. Because if you make a bigger, longer sandwich, you can make a great scarf. There are lots of ways of working with water soluble. So this scarf has been made with strips of saris. So I sandwiched all these long strips into a very long piece of Solufleece, and then I pinned it together, and then I machine stitched all the way through in stripes that all joined up. So then you create this fabulous scarf, and then you can have all your fringing on the end should you wish to. There are so many things that you can do with Solufleece, it's amazing. So I just wanted to talk to you about making scarves and larger pieces with the water soluble. Now, with the water soluble, so you can have great fun with all the knitting yarns you've got. Whatever you fancy, you can put in here. It's a bit like life. You get out of it what you put in. So if you put bits of mohair and pieces of silk or sari strips or whatever, you can make gorgeous scarves. You can make garments if you want to, but depends on how much Solufleece you have and how much time you have to stitch it all together. But do persevere with the soluble, because it's great fun, and we all have so many bits of fabric and tons of threads lurking around. So this is a way of using them all up creatively. Remember these little pieces? There was the printed piece, the stitch, and then there were the little fishes that we did, or I did earlier. I'll just talk to you about how to dissolve them. Before we dissolve, you'll need to have things like a kitchen cloth. We call them J-cloths in the UK and Ireland, but some kind of kitchen cloth or some very thick absorbent kitchen towel. And I'll show you how we do this. So I'm just going to get this kitchen towel ready. So this is the little piece that we printed with the wooden printing block, and there is obviously a huge amount of Solufleece left around the outside. So I'm just going to chop all that off, and you know what I'm going to do with it. So just get rid of it, and I'll just snip around the fishies as well, because we're not going to be moulding these. I want to get most of the Solufleece out, so we'll get rid of the residue, and then you know what we're going to do with the residue. I'll tell you at the end of the videos. We're going to pop it into a plastic bag. Okay, so we have a mixing bowl, glass mixing bowl. It could be plastic, doesn't really matter, with some water in. Doesn't matter what temperature it is. Water soluble fabrics will dissolve in anything. So because we're not going to mould these or form them into 3D, we just need to get rid of the water soluble. You don't need to rub it under the tap or anything. Just let it dissolve naturally. You can leave it overnight if you want to. Can you see that there's gooey stuff there? That's what we leave in when we're going to mould it. So when I show you how to make the bowl, we'll leave all that in, but we don't need it for this purpose. So we're just going to get rid of all the goo. You can get a piece of polystyrene or something that is waterproof, and you can pin your work onto it before you dissolve it if you think it's going to start curling up like this, but that's up to you. I'm still getting rid of the gel here, So we just get rid of that because we don't want anything. We just want nice, clear stitch. So that's more or less done now. Yeah. And then you pop it onto your kitchen paper or kitchen towel or cloth, whatever you've got. Something to absorb the water. This is when you find out if your stitches join up or not. So I'm just going to roughly lay this out, uncurl anything. As I say, if you're doing something quite delicate, as it is quite handy to pin it onto polystyrene or something that's waterproof so that it will keep its shape while you're dissolving and you don't have all this fiddliness. But I thought for the camera and for the video, I think it was important for you to see how it rolls up and can be slightly irritating, but it's not the end of the world. And you've stitched this for so long, going around all the shapes, you know where all the shapes are and what they should look like. So that's all joined up nicely. So I'm just going to give that a squidge, and then that can be left to dry, ready to use on a project, which I'll show you some examples of in the next video. So that's ready to dry somewhere safe. Okay. I'll probably sort it out and flatten it a bit better, but you get the idea. So most, if not all, of the goo and the water soluble has gone now. Okay. The next thing we're going to dissolve are the little fishies. So we'll just pop those in. And then we find out if all the pieces of fabric were actually stitched correctly. You can see how it curls up. And there's still quite a bit of goo in there. So we'll just show you all the goo that is left on there. It's very helpful. You can just see the camera's not focusing terribly well. But there's quite a lot of goo here left, which is what we'll need for the next project, but not for this one. So I think I've caught all the fabrics. None of the fabrics are coming away in the water. So that's a joy. My fingers are all sticky now as well. So we'll just let that dissolve. As I say, if you want it to really dissolve, just leave it overnight. Don't be in a hurry. Right, these are more or less done now. I left them for about 10 minutes and they're just kind of sorted now. So I'm just going to pop these back onto the kitchen cloth so you can see what I'm doing. Now, I just managed to catch that piece of fabric. I caught one side of it, but not the other. But that's okay. So we've got little fishes, and I'm just going to give them a squidge. And again, they can dry somewhere. You can dry them on the kitchen towel, kitchen cloth, anywhere you fancy, basically. So these could be added to a project, which again, I'll show you in a minute. Before I dissolve the larger piece, these lights are a bit bright. I think I might have to turn them down. But this one that I prepared earlier, I've trimmed off most of the residue of the solifleece, but I haven't cut quite to the edge because I just don't want to cut into the stitch because I'm not terribly neat and tidy, as you probably gathered. And what you need to do before you start to dissolve is decide what kind of shape bowl you want to put your work on. So this might be the one for this, or you could put it on a deeper bowl. If you can find a bowl that has a narrow foot, that helps rather than a pudding basin. But most of us will have pudding basins, which is why I'm showing you this. So this would work quite well. You can also use plastic because the stitch will resist everything. So you could use this shape bowl. These lights are a bit annoying, apologies. So depending on what shape you want, whatever you do, you're still going to get creases because your circle is wider than the circumference or the width of the bowl. So you're always going to have creases, but you can work on that as you mold it and pleat it so that it kind of works in. So I have a choice of bowls, and I'm probably going to use the middle size one. So that's what I've got ready now. You kind of need these sort of things ready before you dissolve, although it's exciting to dissolve. You do need to have everything ready. So we have our bowl of water and we have our stitch piece that we want to mold. Now you've seen me dissolving pieces of stitch and getting all, if not most of the glue out, or the solufleece, or whatever you want to call it. Let's call it the goo. This time we want to keep as much goo as possible, but without it showing in great lumps. So you need to be reasonably quick with this, which is why I'm talking to you about it before I do it. Plus, my little flower isn't quite in the center, so I've got to decide if I'm going to have a slightly lopsided bowl or go for the center. We'll see what happens, I think. So I'm just going to pop this in very quickly. And you can see it's all starting to dissolve. The white is going now. So I'm just going to leave it in there for a few seconds. Then I'm going to look at it and feel it. And there's still a little bit of solufleece or goo in the holes of the stitch. So I'm just going to give it a little more, and then I'm going to pop it onto the bowl quite quickly. I think that's probably enough now. It still feels quite sticky, but you can see all the stitches. So you can see it's taking the form of my hand. So I'm just going to push the bowl of water out of the way. And then I'm going to pop this very wet. So mind your working surface when you're doing this. I'm going to pop this onto the bowl. Now you've got plenty of time to decide how lopsided it is, where you want the creases, because it'll be wet for quite a long time. I'm dripping all over my ironing cloth, which is always a good plan. I'm going to smooth out the little silk leaves because they need to be flat. I don't think it matters if the stitch is kind of crumpled up, but it's quite nice to have these flat. So I'm just starting to smooth it out, making sure that nothing is pleated underneath on the edge so that it's pulling to its fullest extent. So I'm going to keep the leaves flat, and I'm going to kind of crease up in between the leaves so that can take the kind of pleating action. So we're just, as I say, you can take a little bit more time. I'm being reasonably quick because I'm filming it and I don't want you to fall asleep with boredom, because you no doubt want to get on and play. But as I say, you have quite a lot of time to smooth out the creases and make sure that everything is reasonably symmetrical. If you want it to be symmetrical, it can be lopsided, it can be whatever you like. And obviously this is just a traditional bowl. There are many, many things you can do. This is going to hang this way up. In fact, I'm just going to wipe my sticky hands and change cameras. Hopefully not getting too much glue on my mouse. So we'll get the camera out of the way. So this is obviously hanging down. I'd like it to be an organic edge. So I need to find a jar or something strong that will take the weight of the glass bowl so it can just dry this way up. Okay, so I think that's more or less as I would like it if it was that way up. But I'm going to dry it that way up so that we've got all the little bits hanging down and they will form points. I've also got a bit of stitch here where I walked across and didn't cut that thread. So I've got one or two threads to cut off, but there's usually something that you can't find and you see it later. But the great thing about thread is that you can cut it. So that's pretty molded now. So I'm just going to leave that to dry, which would take overnight in a warm room. It does take a while to dry properly. And then we'll have a look at what it looks like when it comes out. I found one of my tubs of paint, one of the big paint tubs that I use when I'm teaching, and it's got just the right size top to support the bowl and the base. It's tall enough for me to put onto the table for everything to dry. So I will show you that when it is dry. It's finished, it's dry, it's stiff, it stands up by itself, it's splendid. It's not perfect, and I will explain why. There are a couple of things I want to talk to you about unbowling or debowling your piece of work. Because it can be quite fragile because you've got a lot of stitch. I don't know if you can see here, that's better with the white behind it. I pulled this section so far that I actually broke the stitches. Try not to do that. It doesn't matter too much because my work tends to be a bit raggedy anyway. But if you're going for a nice neat edge and you'd like your work to be as it was when you put it around the bowl, then maybe consider using a plastic bowl, because the glass bowl was a little bit more difficult to ease everything away from the edge, and just be a bit more gentle than I am. So that was probably the major casualty, although it's not too bad because the edges are quite sort of organic. So here is the bowl.